Everyone's looking a bit worried, Arlene.
I've practiced this enough, but you know, on the day.
Are we connecting with the world?
It's very soon. That's a nice picture, Chris. Did you put that there? Oh, there we go. Now, Chris, can you see the live stream? Oh, hang on, I'll unmute you. There we go.
Sorry, no, I can't see that coming through, not on YouTube.
I can see it. I can see it. Yes, I'm pretty sure we are now.
Okay. So we might as well get started. So I would like to declare this meeting, this extraordinary meeting of Mackenzie District Council today open. And tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā kei taro. So welcome and welcome everyone. Now, do we have any apologies? I think we've got a full house, so there'll be no apologies. So it's great everyone's been able to make this important meeting. Probably we need to just set a couple of ground rules, and that is that if you're not speaking, keep your microphones on mute. I think the best way if you want to speak is to raise your hand and I'll invite you to speak. Again, when we move something or receive something, if you can just raise your hand when you move it. And I think it'll go well. So, so first of all, we have some bereavements. And we have the bereavements of Kathleen McDonald, died on the 27th of April, a loved husband of Derek. We had Joan Lillian Wildman, died on the 3rd of May, late wife of Derek, and much loved mum of Debbie Harris, Joe and Peter Johnson of Twizel, I know those people, and Sally and Bill Giddham. We also had Maxwell Rye, died on the 4th of May, and Max was on the committee for Wings Over the Water air show at Twizel in 2011, and also had a very long interest in earth-moving machinery and trucks. And we also had Steve Binns from Tegapo, loved and cherished soulmate of Sharon, and cherished dad of Joshua and Jason. And Sharon Binns is on our Tegapo community board. So if we can just bow our heads and remember with respect these people. Thank you. Thank you. So first of all, is there any declarations of declared interest with any of the matters on the agenda? No declarations? Okay, the first report that we need to receive is the Mackenzie District Recovery Action Plan. Now, I'll just talk briefly about it. We've all workshopped this. We've all had an input, and I thank Tim for actually collating and the staff for putting it together. Everyone's been involved in some way in trying to put this recovery action plan together. And if just before we receive the report, we'll receive the report. Will someone move we receive the report? Okay, Anne and Murray, thank you. So I'll just touch on the purpose of the report, because before I hand it over to Tim to speak to it, this is a guide program for the actions of support to strengthen our Mackenzie community. This plan will take a sustainable development approach, but it has to align with the Government Act 2002, which provides for local governments to play a broad role in promoting the social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being of our communities. So it will be a community-led process, and Mackenzie District Council Recovery Plan. This endorsement, if we can do it today, will demonstrate leadership and give confidence, I hope, to our community that the council is acting with decisiveness and empathy in the face of our two overlapping major challenges, social and economic emergency situations. So our mission is fostering our community, and it's important that the Mackenzie community is at the heart of this recovery. A community-led recovery forum has been identified as one of our actions to coordinate this bottom-up process with council. And council needs to assume the role of enabler, facilitator, and advocate. So with that in mind, Tim, will you, Tim, speak to this paper?
Thank you, Mayor. As you have summarised, Mayor Graham, this is really the first formal step. Presenting this paper to council for approval is the first formal step in our community response to the impact of this virus. There's obviously a bunch of initiatives underway already, but this allows us to move forward with a number of initiatives. They are essentially high-level bullet points. We proposed a number of actions, most of which are already underway as immediate responses. And then we have ones that are going to take a little bit more time. And then we have our longer term strategic responses. Each one of these actions we expect may well lead into a whole much wider range of work, which would have to be then regarded separately, maybe funded, may require business cases, etc. So this is essentially asking the councillors to consider and adopt an immediate path forward.
Thank you, Tim. You've all read the, no doubt, the report as such. I just wonder if we shouldn't go through the immediate response initial headings. For a start off, our first one is civil defence, leading civil defence in Mackenzie to ensure comprehensive welfare support. This is underway. It's been working really well. Is there any questions around that? Yes, Murray.
There we are. Just really a comment on that in terms of at the end of this, I suppose, would be whether there'll be a review of our sort of civil defence operations in terms of that. If we look at what's happened and what was sort of, was there anything lacking in the community if we do have another disaster or another pandemic? And I think I did mention it before that should we then be sitting down with the likes of ministers and things like that to say, you know, there were some things in the area that that might be a bit limiting in another disaster around, you know, medical facilities and technology and those types of things. So I presume that one of the things will be when we get through the immediate response in terms of civil defence would be a review of what actually happened and what we may be lacking for when we go forward into another disaster. Just yeah.
Thank you, Murray, and that's in the form of like a debrief. Suzette, do you want to make comment on this, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Graham. Most definitely, I'm sure that after every event, there's always a review, and I think there will be a really big one with this one across the nation. And yes, in terms of our own EOC and how it operated and how it functioned, will also be part of our internal review. One of the things that we've already identified as probably an immediate shortcoming is the lack of an appointed recovery manager. Typically, a council will have a recovery management strategy, and this is absent from our package at the moment. It's something that's on Phil's to-do list, and we'll get to that. But because we don't have an appointed recovery manager in terms of the Civil Defence Act, we will have to go and appoint one now as part of this program.
Thank you, Suzette. Any other comments? Okay, bullet point 2 was refunding consent fees. Obviously, full refunds offered to anyone who wants to cancel their building consent or resource consents applications in progress that were lodged after the 1st of March. Any comments on that action? No, that's good. Create local jobs with local projects. We have now making some changes to allow this to happen. Any comments around that? Thank you. Establish a community-led business development forum. Oh, sorry, Matt. Sorry, Matt. Please, we'll go back to that one. Matt.
Thanks, Mayor Graham. No, just briefly on the creating local jobs with local projects. I think there's some higher level work that needs to go on around visas currently. I think I've been hearing that there could be potential issues with keeping local people employed in local jobs with the current state of visa renewal and applications and such. So I think we just have to be aware of that happening in the background.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, the thrust was to create local jobs, local projects, and have local people in those jobs where possible. So the next bullet point was establish a community-led business development forum. Any comments on that? Murray, thank you.
Sorry, Anne, got on before. Yeah, just on that one, I just probably a question for Tim actually is there a handle on a lot of those? There's quite a few groups out there at the moment that are sort of forming recovery groups, and you know, you can see that through Facebook and things, and people sort of getting together. So it was just a question as to, have we got a handle on groups that are already forming and what they're doing, and you know, so we're taking that sort of all on board, and that'll, you know, sort of fall into this recovery group.
So Mayor Graham, to respond back, Murray, is that we know what we know. At the moment, we are drafting a subsequent proposal for the details of this business development forum, and we're anticipating a wide range, inviting a wide range of stakeholders across the community. So we would use obviously our contacts on community boards, we would use our contacts on the various kind of promotion development associations in Twizel and Tekapo, and we would use our the knowledge from our staff and obviously from our elected officials to guide a comprehensive invitation to this business recovery forum.
Thank you, Tim. Any other comments? Anne, sorry, did you, oh, Stuart. Anne.
my question was pretty much answered by what Murray asked and Tim answered. Thank you.
Stuart?
Yeah, I think it would be, thanks Mayor Graham, I think it would be prudent if we actually invited people to become members or let us know what they're doing, so we can then, without trying to second guess, and invite people to become part of this forum, virtually an open invitation type thing.
James?
Yes, I'm aware there's already a McKenzie tourism industry group being formed. Surveys gone out to over 400 businesses. 200 of those are accommodation providers, and they've had a 25% response to that already in about 2 or 3 days. So there is quite a groundswell out there already of people wanting to get on board with recovery.
Thank you, James. Yes, I was in a meeting with the tourist industry group as such, and have taken on board some of their proposals. But one of the things that I think we need to remember, and is really important, that we are a small district and we need to work together, really work together. It's a bit like we need to be united in our fight to actually keep our businesses and to grow our Mackenzie. So we need to be engaged together. Any other comments? Okay, rates remission and rates postponement policies. We've always had these in place, but we are going to get probably quite a number of requests for these postponements and remissions. Any comments around these? Yes, Stuart?
Yeah, just on that one, could we not make that a bit wider and implement a monthly repayment plan for people rather than a straight out remission or a postponement, and let them pay it on a monthly basis rather than...
I always thought that option was always there, but Suzette, you might be able to fill us in a wee bit more on this.
I think Paul will be closer to the action in terms of that, but I can't see that should be a problem. It's just like any other debtors and creditors. There should be an ability to pay monthly.
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor Graham. That's correct, Mayor Graham. There's nothing to stop us entering into those arrangements now.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any other comments on, yes, Anne?
I understand the process to apply for remission is quite complex. Are we able to make sure that we can be really enabling in this, make it as painless as possible for people that are applying for this, please?
Paul, would you like to comment on this, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne. Yes, absolutely. We are doing that. In fact, I think my understanding is there's communication going out through the Mackenzie Messenger on the latest rate scenario. There'll be a letter informing ratepayers around these sort of options. So yes, we will absolutely make ourselves available to help support the local community and rates remission and rates postponement positions.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments? James?
I just want to support what Anne has said about making this process as easy as possible. And one of the things we could do in reading this, the word extreme is used for hardship. I think that's probably a bit strong, and I wonder if we could just take that out. And it also occurs elsewhere in this this document. And let's just refer to hardship without making it extreme.
Mayor Graham, I could perhaps explain that term. It's currently in our policy, so we can absolutely look at that and revise that. It's in our current policy.
At the same time, though, we've got to accept this as extreme and unusual circumstances. Thank you, James. Any other comments on that? It is probably going to be quite a big one, and I'm not too sure just how far it will go, but it will have an impact. Fast track, and this is like 10 working days for resource consent process for non-notified resource consent applications that generate employment. So any comments around that one? That's to try and stimulate business in our district. No. Deliver building inspections remotely. This was something that also came out, I remember it at our building workshops when a lot of the builders felt we could be doing these inspections remotely. So good to see we've put it into our list of things that we can happen. So improving procurement policy. Now, we've got another paper on this coming. Any comments? No. Urgent revision of tourism marketing. This is a big one in our district at the moment. And Tim, would you like to talk a wee bit more about this, please?
We have been working very closely with local Mackenzie tourism operators groups and also with our regional tourism organisation, Christchurch NZ, around how we can actually respond rapidly to the current crisis with overseas visitors unable to come to the country, and many of our local businesses predominantly looking after international visitors. So there's a lot of marketing plans underway, and a lot of activity underway and planned as we come out of the lockdown process. So yeah, it seems to be working really well. The new Mackenzie Tourism Industry Group is working really hard to get a mandate from everybody. Seems a really good idea, and both Council and Christchurch NZ are working really well with all the people involved.
Thank you, Tim. Any other comments on that? Sorry, Murray.
Yeah, Grant, just to comment on that there, just to be, I suppose, aware of though a lot of the comments on in the media and on Facebook around, you know, freedom camping, and you know, there have been moves, you know, calling for freedom camping to be sort of banned so that people go back into camping grounds and all those types of things with businesses, and obviously around Airbnbs and things like that, where there, you know, there was always the questions around them competing with hotels and motels and those types of things. So there will no doubt be quite a few issues that we'll have to deal with as we go through that tourism area. So it will be quite important to make sure that we do have a handle on what, you know, what's coming out of the tourism operators and how they feel about you know, parts of the tourism business, because they'll all be, obviously they're all competing against each other, but there are those, you know, there are those underlying issues that were always there around things like freedom camping and Airbnbs, and that'll sort of surface, that'll probably surface a lot more now and be sort of hotter topics going forward.
Thank you, Murray. Yes, there's a concern of a lot of the people in the tourist industry, Airbnbs and freedom camping. Thank you.
Mayor Graham, if I may, I thought this might be a good opportunity to also let you all know that there's a lot of positive news happening in the tourism industry as well. I've heard from a number of local operators who have turned to the domestic market for their booking for their visitors, and they're showing increasing bookings and are feeling much more buoyant about it. That's obviously not the case altogether, but it does counter a lot of the negative news that was coming out previously.
Thank you, Tim. Any other comments? Suzette?
Further to what was discussed to date, also aware that MB, with DOC's help and Minister Davies, is actually rewriting a few things in terms of tourism post-COVID. We should be able to tap into that pretty soon. And I guess there is going to be some very direct guidance coming from them, especially in terms of freedom camping, that kind of volume-based tourism. So whether it's a review of the national tourism strategy, I don't know at this stage, but it's an area that we should just keep an eye on.
Thank you, Suzette. Fully agree. Okay, helping business. So this is ramping up business and financial support for the Mackenzie businesses via the South Canterbury Chamber of Commerce. And I will put it out there, I really do have to commend the Chamber. We have supported them and they've supported us really, really well. And I've had good communication with a number of our businesses that are very grateful for the services that the Chamber has been able to give to our community. So this is going to carry on, or do you see some change, Suzette?
Not for the short term, Mayor Graham. Tim's been working really hard with the Chamber of Commerce. As you know, we are reviewing our current MOU with them as well as Christchurch NZ. And in there, we are just tightening up a few things like quarterly reporting and list of activities, what they actually do, so that there's a little bit more accountability in there. But I think it's going really well so far, and we'll bring that to council no doubt quite soon.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any other comments? Great. The one thing we have been asking for from the Chamber for quite some time is further evidence-based comments. So, and hopefully that's on track. Okay, engage with the Department of Conservation under our alignment with a number of aligned services that we've got, such as LINZ and ECAN and Department of Conservation. We do have an alignment agreement. So I believe, Suzette, you have been in negotiation with Department of Conservation.
Yes, Mayor Graham. Lou Sampson has sent through a request to all 5 Cs involved with the Mackenzie Basin alignment, and together we have agreed with his purpose of using this time to create employment to help the environment basically, and to help people with employment opportunities, and that's to do with wilding conifers and pest control, that kind of thing in the basin. And they have put a significant budget towards that, so we are fully in support. And I'm also talking to Karina in terms of what we can do together as part of our partnership to make sure we help each other.
Thank you, Suzette. Any comments, James?
And one of the things that we can do is a lot of these people who are going to be working on these dock projects will need accommodation. And there are industry groups which have indicated that a lot of Airbnbs are now looking for long-term rentals. And is there some way we could facilitate putting those people in touch with DOC so that these new employees can be housed appropriately?
Yes, thank you, James. Any other comments, Murray?
Do we actually know how many jobs we think this is, like for the for the Wilding Pines and any other environmental work? Do we know what that might mean for the Mackenzie?
Suzette, do you have any thoughts around that?
No, through the chair, no detail yet. No.
To be fair to say, we're just in the beginning of the conversations a wee bit, and I have made it known that there is work available through with the Conservation Department in the Mackenzie, but it still needs a bit more work around it. Okay, so that is very good. Using the Canterbury Mayoral Forum as a lobby for support, well, I can speak to that. Yes, Canterbury mayors are working together. We are lobbying very, very hard. I'm also lobbying for Mackenzie District Council. I have a letter in to Kelvin Davis waiting for a response at the moment, the Minister, seeking more support for this area for the tourist operators. So it's an ongoing thing, and certainly we will use the Canterbury Mayoral Forum as much as we can to gain support. Matt, did you want to comment? No, you were just scratching your head. No, that's good. And I find the Canterbury Mayoral Forum is a very strong forum. And when 9 of us as mayors get together and work together, we can demonstrate quite an impact on the government's thinking. So that's good. Okay, launch a Mackenzie Open for Business website. I think this is a very good initiative, and probably quite like Chris, if you can speak to this a wee bit.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. Well, it was initially an initiative undertaken by Ashburton District Council that developed it for Mid Canterbury. It's actually developed by the same people that we're working with to develop the web apps, and also who will be our partner when we redevelop the websites over the next few months. Crucially, the difference to some of the other listings is that it's not a byproduct of something else. So it's not sitting on the South Canterbury Chamber of Commerce's website or our website. It's a website in its own right. And so you don't have to dig away to find it. Businesses can update their own information, so it doesn't rely on somebody behind the scenes having to enter data. Puts the control in the hands of businesses, which means now it's out there and now it's up and running. We don't have to do anything. We can sit back and just encourage people to make use of it. But crucially too, it can be searched by town, by type of business. Businesses can put a flag on their listing if they're hiring or recruiting, which is a useful tool too. So it's only been out there for a very short period of time, but we've had some very positive feedback over the last 12 hours.
Thank you, Chris. Any comments? A great initiative. Thank you, Chris. So they are the immediate response. Over the next 3 months, and you've got to remember this is just the beginning of quite a big recovery that we're actually going to have to see in a new normal. There's a number of other things, such as waiving of late rates payment penalties. At the moment, we're bound by what we set in our plan last year. But at the end of June going forward, we have the ability to change this. Is there anything in those lists, or do you want me to go through every one of them and speak to it? Yes, Stuart.
Thanks, Mayor Grant. Just further to the initial initiatives that we can do, I was just wondering if 1 or 2 free days at our resource parks. We've been locked down for 6 or 7 weeks with limited recovery of rubbish. We do offer the odd free day that people can take in green waste and perhaps recyclable stuff for the parks. It's something I think we could do as a gesture for the residents, not only the towns but of the rural area as well, and that we could have perhaps 1 or 2 days in the next month or two to do that. It would be a very small cost.
Has anyone got any other comments? No, I think that's a good initiative, and especially in our towns at the moment, where I notice the gutters are getting full of leaves and things like that that need to be taken to the park. So I think that's a very good initiative. I do know and have heard of some people that have been doing their recycling very, very well. And when they've taken it to the park, it's dump it all in one heap because we haven't been doing recycling during this crisis. So I think that's a good initiative. Anyway, Matt.
No, only other than, as you said, Mayor Graham, I support that initiative wholly. There has been some concerns locally here around the stockpiling of rubbish and refuse over the past month or so. And I think that would be a great way of leveling the playing fields again and allowing people to get rid of their excess that they've been storing free of charge. I think it's a small thing we can do to help.
Thank you. James, you have any comment on Trizell's situation, or Emily?
No, other than if you've been stockpiling your recycling, once we start recycling again, it should be able to be taken. Don't know about green waste, that's always been a bit of an issue, but on the whole, I think the waste has been, we've had the red bins every week, and that's been very well received and very effective.
Thanks, James. Anne?
Oh, just in support of it as well. I think it is a gesture that we could do well with.
Right. Well, can we take that on board, Suzette, and we'll work that into our program. Okay.
We certainly can look at it, Mayor Graham. Thank you.
So the next 3 months, there's a number of items here, and they're around the waiving of late payment penalties, incorporating a community recovery lens in our grants funding policy, bringing forward 3 waters and roading projects, examine policies and processes to ensure council can assist ratepayers who are experiencing financial hardship, review regulatory and compliance framework to develop fast-track processes, put the McKenzie Recovery Forum underway, commercial rent relief, and community development, potentially employing a community development manager to find ways of supplement incomes of the community organisations in the district. So there is a number of things there. Does anyone want to raise something? No, thank you. And then there's the long-term recovery, which has a number of incorporated social development into council's operations and capital program, long-term plan review, which is very important. We all agree we need this underway. Destination McKenzie, pleased to tell you all that is now alive and working. Bit of a change, but I think it'll play a big part into our overall going forward strategies. So we have an economic development strategy, tourist management strategy, the district plan review, and sustainable infrastructure strategy, the McKenzie Basin alignment with our partnership with Lynn's, Dock, Waitaki District and ECAN, and we'll be investigating our forestry portfolio. So any comments around any of those proposals? I'd just like to say, yeah, sorry, James.
Yeah, sorry, Graham, Mayor Graham, you missed me a bit early on. I'd like to go back to the 3 months. One, there's just a couple of things that I think we need to consider a bit, and that is particularly the one about reviewing regulatory and compliance framework. The mention of mobile traders and pop-up being supported, I think, was actually be to the detriment of established businesses in the district. If we're trying to promote our local businesses and employment, that's where we should be focused. Mobile traders tend to be sole traders, and pop-ups are generally not local. The local businesses are paying rates and doing all the right things to establish themselves, whereas pop-up people don't, or mobile traders tend to be come and go, and they don't contribute significantly to the council's resources. So I think that should be removed from that part. And then at the bottom about the community development, I also think there should be some wording in there about how the council is continuing to support heartlands, resource centres and the community in that way as well. That's just a couple of comments that I'd make about that side of it.
Thank you, James. Matt?
Yeah, I'd fully support James's view there on the mobile traders and pop-ups. I think they have an unfair advantage. They have much lower costs. I think worst case scenario, if we were going to support anything of that like, it would be purely on a non-competitive basis. So as not to penalise the local businesses that are struggling right now and trying their very best to get back into business. So I would fully support James's view there on actually not giving the mobile traders and pop-ups an advantage.
Thank you, Matt. Any other comments? Thanks, James, for raising that. I think we all agree that it's very important that we support our local businesses. So, James, Tim or Suzette, would you like to comment on that, please?
Thanks, Graham. Absolutely agree. We can remove that reference from that particular item around the mobile traders, and we can extend the community development initiative to include the support for Heartlands and the other community support groups. These were never prescriptive, and it was really just an indication of the kinds of things that we will be looking at in those cases. So yeah, good ideas.
Thanks, Tim. Suzette?
Thank you, Mayor Graham. If you look at the wording there, it says either to employ a community development manager or to investigate ways to supplement the income of community organisations in the district. So we haven't mentioned them by name like Heartlands, but that's what it means. So they have been mentioned, but if you want us to start putting in the names, we can do that if you want, but it's already covered.
Thank you, Suzette. And yes, I read it that way too, that they were inclusive. Any other comments? Sorry about James for missing you. So we'll go back forward to the 6 month plus. Has anyone want to make some comments around any of those actions? It's work in progress, and our main focus, sorry, Matt, but it's work in progress, but we need to understand that a lot of these things will change as we further develop down there. So we need to be flexible in how we align it. Matt?
You've just covered my points almost word for word, Mayor Graham. Yeah, I think flexibility is going to be the key here. I think these are just very much a starting point, as Tim referred earlier on, and the devil will be in the detail. And I guess we'll just have to work through that as we get on with it.
Thank you, Matt. Anne?
Suzette, just remind me, please, in regards to the Economic Development Manager recruitment and the establishment of the Mackenzie Business Recovery Forum. Are they going to be in tandem, or does one get prior to the other, or how do you see that panning out?
Suzette?
Through the chair, yes, it's kind of linked with what we've already been doing. So part of the MOU review with Christchurch NZ and the Chamber of Commerce, we've reduced that amount and made some of that funding available to enable us to appoint an economic development officer and a lower level tourism operator, or not operator, a coordinator actually, to work with those groups. At the moment, Tim is the only resource working with them, but Tim's also our transition manager with a heavy transition program still on the way. So we needed to fund to fund that forum anyway. So they do go in tandem. I'm perhaps more concerned that we focus a little bit too much on economic recovery and not enough on social recovery or welfare recovery. So the recovery forum will have to cover both, but this particular business development group is mainly for tourism operators and businesses.
Thank you, Suzette. Sorry, is someone Stuart?
Yes, Mayor Graham, just on that, you don't think the economic recovery side of it would clash or coordinate with the property and commercial committee that we have, and would double up? Could we not incorporate it into one?
Thank you, Suzette.
There's different ways and means of doing things. At the moment, that property and commercial manager is quite busy with whatever we give him to do in terms of the commercial activities. It will eventually form part of the same team, yes, but there's different aspects to it. This economic development manager will actually sit down with individual businesses and be a link to funding opportunities and actually develop them. So that's what the word means. It means develop them, help them to develop. Same with the community development manager. That person will be hands and knees busy with the community to develop them. So there's a slight difference in their position descriptions, but they will form part of the same team in the end.
Okay, thank you. Any Stuart?
Yeah, just on furthering that, would that not be the work of the chamber that could help the businesses? They're already there doing it and incorporate them in that.
It will probably be slightly different and helping them with funding applications. It's not the same as the chamber, but it allows us to reduce the work of the chamber. Yes, so it's detailed stuff. It's not as easy to describe like this. It's not a duplication. We're taking that part away from the chamber.
Any other comments, Murray?
Yeah, just following on probably from what Stuart's saying there, is it probably at some stage will be quite good to see the position descriptions of those people so that you know, we can sort of see where they align up. So I'm not, how far out are we talking about having position descriptions and actually advertising for these jobs?
Well, we're ready to go. The job descriptions are completed. We're ready to go with them. Where
are the job descriptions then?
Pardon?
Whereabouts are they? Can we see them on are they on the website?
They are ready. We haven't advertised yet, no. So but I mean, we can share that with you. It's an operational thing though, so it's not a new head count. It's within the same budget. I would invite Tim to explain what we've done there.
Yes, Tim.
So thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think the key thing that we're looking to do here is to keep the momentum going regardless in this initial phase. So the key thing is not to put all the handbrakes on while we have an inward gaze on our structure and so on. What we need to do is to crack on and coordinate, work with the community to start actually making a difference. So how this actually ends up looking will be a matter for, I guess, the executive to confirm a formal proposal that will then go to the councillors. But in the interim, the key thing is that we actually use whatever resources we can to get the recovery underway. So I wouldn't like to presuppose at this stage in a council meeting who reports to who and how that works. I don't think that's appropriate. But I think that certainly from the work that I've been doing with the executive, we've got some sound basis for actually how we can move forward over the next week. And then whatever we're proposing in the annual plan then comes up for council to consider and adopt, which allows us and gives us the budgets and the structure to embed it into our council organisation going forward.
Murray?
Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused on that because I sort of had the knowledge that there wasn't much in the organisation, you know, space, I suppose, to put some of these jobs into. So, and these are pretty, you know, jobs that need to be done and things that need to be done quite quickly. So I'm just not sure how that all fits in. And I think from a governance point of view, we would need to know that there's the ability to do these positions, or, you know, so I'm still a little confused as to how that's all going to fit into the organisation.
So to the chair, sorry, Murray. Through the chair, exactly. I mean, you haven't seen an organisation structure because we haven't finalised and presented one. So that will be as a result of the adoption of this summary action plan. On the basis of that, executive will confirm how that works, and we will then propose that to council. And that, to be fair, will be the case with a number of these actions. These actions, I would like to just remind you all again, they are not an end point. Pretty much every one of those actions is the starting point. And we will be obviously working with the councillors to confirm and clarify in detail the rollout and the impact of each one of those initiatives. And the staffing and resourcing is just one of those. So absolutely, it will become clear following the adoption of this paper, that then gives executive the opportunity to go back and say, right, we've got the endorsement, we can now carry on and finalise how we think this is going to work, what it's going to cost, and present that back to council. Does that clarify it?
Thank you, Tim. Murray, are you, at the moment, the first stage is to accept this plan, which is a variety of things. I think as we go forward, we'll get into more depth, but I think it's very important that councillors and staff work together a wee bit on the same page as far as this is concerned. Any other comments? Okay, so we've now been through, so no other comments on the paper. Is there someone willing to move that the Mackenzie District Recovery Action Plan be adopted by council? I am happy to move it. Would there be a seconder? Councillor Barwood. All in favour? Please raise your hand. All in favour? Sorry, Anne, did you want to talk, or you're in favour? No, she's all good. So is there anyone against moving this action plan? No, so it's a yes, we're all in favour. So thank you, and thank you to everyone for their input into bringing this together today. Thank you, Tim, for collating it. Thank you to all the staff too for their input and working through this. So a good outcome, I think, but I do reiterate, it's just the beginning. Okay, moving on to 4.2. In order to be able to carry out some of these functions, we need to update some of the new policies for adoption. So we'll move on. So will someone move that we receive this report, please? Thanks, James. Seconded, Emily. Thank you. So, Tim, do you want to speak to this paper, please?
Thanks, Mayor Graham. Yes, so in order to guide a number of the decisions, we've proposed some new policies and some modifications to some of our existing policies to allow the scope for that. So there's a large number of policies up for adoption. There's some 12 there. They've been considered in workshop, and they've also been considered by the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. So I guess the easiest way to go forward is just to ask if there are any questions. Perhaps I could say at a high level, my view of a policy is that it's basically a working document to guide and help secure council in terms of give consistent approach to decisions and practice. I see them as living documents. So while this will be proposing a particular document at a particular date and time, we always learn better how we can do things, and they should be able to change and be reviewed and improved and so on as we go forward.
Thank you, Tim. Just before I put it over to the floor, I notice there'll be a new policy around cash handling. There'll be a new policy around community grants. There'll be a new policy around property sales and acquisitions. There'll be a new policy around investment. There'll be a new policy around risk appetite. So those are the new ones, Tim. The rest are being updated. So I'll put it to the floor. Anyone wants to speak to it? Tim, sorry.
No, that's correct, Mayor Graham.
Okay. So is there any comments? Yes, Stuart.
Yeah, just on the disposal of assets, policy 3.8, which is, it's got listed roads and footpaths. And it seems to me, and it's also listed under the property sales and acquisition policy. One in the disposal asset is written in a very generic form, like very similar to disposing of computer equipment. Now, I'm just wondering if that's not a double up, and should the roads and footpaths be there? It's written properly, I think, under properties and sales, where you've got a it's a legal road, you've got to sort it out and do it through the right channel, whereas the one under the disposal asset is very generic, written right thing.
I can talk to that, Mayor Graham. Yes, you're absolutely right, Councillor Barwood. A lot of our aspects will actually have various policies referring to them. The particular part of this is around the fact that our roads and our footpaths have, they're recorded as an asset and they have an asset value. So it's more like the treatment of it from a disposal point of view, not a sales and acquisition thing. So if we get rid of it, we have to treat that asset appropriately and formally through our various processes. So it's a slightly different aspect of the roads and footpaths. It is necessarily pretty generic, and it's really more about the bookkeeping of it. Obviously, it's not as if somebody comes along and picks up a road and a footpath and takes it away, but you know what I mean.
Thank you, Tim. And my question was around the capital value of these things when we're depreciating them and claiming back. So we take full depreciation off roading. Tim.
Mayor Graham, that's not something I can specifically respond to. That's more a question for our finance department.
But it's within the policy of procurement, isn't it?
It's actually treated under the financial assets accounting policy, fixed assets accounting policy, sorry, number 6. that sets out the various rules for depreciation for the different kinds of assets.
So I suppose my question is to Paul, do we fully depreciate roads?
In accordance with the policy, yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. It's always a wee bit tricky with roads, what is maintenance and what is capital depreciation. Any other comments? Anne, thank you. Anne, thank you.
Following on from Stuart's question on roads and footpaths and assets and disposal policy, I noted that at 3.8 and 3.9, Tim, the final option of dumping, I wondered whether there's currently no mention of our fourth wellbeing environment, and I just wondered whether it wouldn't be a prudent idea to perhaps mention dumping environmentally.
Through the chair, thanks very much. That sounds like a really useful suggestion to incorporate.
Thank you, Anne. Is there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Barwood.
Yeah, just in the liability management policy, in the number 4, in the borrowing, we have a net interest not to exceed 20% of revenue, and the net interest not to exceed 25% of the annual rates. Is that either situation, or is it use both calculations in doing that?
I assumed it was which one you got to first, but I'll let Paul answer that one.
Gives us an option to look at both of those. So one that works best for us and is financially affordable.
Thanks, Paul.
The other comment I'd perhaps like to make about some of these policies, as Tim said, they have been extensively reviewed, both internally and in some cases externally. We've had advice externally. We've also had Audit New Zealand looking over some of these policies for us. And as Tim mentioned, they are a work in progress. Some of them will find that there might be a bit of tweaking going on, picking up some of the comments that you've made. We've already had some feedback from Audit New Zealand ahead of our annual audit on the quality of the policies. They're very impressed with the fact that the council is getting good systems and processes in place around having these best practice policies in place. They've added some comments, we've taken them on board, and we'll amend and update them accordingly. But the general feeling is very positive. They're great to have in place. They emulate best practice systems and process.
James.
Yeah, I'd like to bring up the creative communities under the grants, community grant scheme. Under 8.4, this is the only grant which is actually administered by an authorised council staff member. And as such, I think it would be a good idea to just tighten up the rules and the guidance around that a little. And I'd suggest that the wording be changed to encourage, well, to ensure that the council staff member advertises for the committee, and that's advertised widely across the district, and that the appointees are representative of the district. I have some wording which I've already given to Arlene on that, but I could read that out to you if you like.
Thank you, James. I think that's probably quite helpful. If you would read it out, please.
Okay, the sentence reads, each year the authorised council staff member will appoint from a pool of applicants after advertising across the district an annual creative community scheme committee of between 4 and 6 members from the district. Further down, then the next sentence says council appointees, where possible, will have a background in the arts, community events, and/or school education, and represent a range of arts practices. I'd like to add on, and be representative of all ratepayers.
Fair comment. Suzette, did you want to make a comment? Thank you.
So just a question through the chair to Councillor Leslie. Does that mean only ratepayers can become part, or all residents?
Through the chair, no, that's not excluding non-ratepayers from being on the committee. It's just that the committee needs to be able to represent everyone in every ratepayer in the district, because it's ratepayers' money that's being administered.
Does that answer your question, Suzette?
Yeah, I think residents who rent houses also contribute to the district's income. By excluding other residents to just include ratepayers is probably not fair in my view, but it's council's policy, so we'll take on board what you want in there.
Well, I think it's a fair comment. Anyone else want to make a comment on that? Murray? No. James?
I'm happy to remove reference to ratepayers, so we can just delete that last sentence, just so long as the positions are advertised across the district, and in the table further down on page 91, it should reflect advertise in the timeline as well.
Well, I think generally we'd support that. Is anyone against that? Okay, so hopefully we can incorporate that into the policy, Tim.
Thanks, Mayor Graham. Thanks, Councillor Leslie. Greatly appreciated. I will work with you to actually clarify the wording for that and get that incorporated in there.
Yes, James.
Just back to Tim, that Arlene already has that wording, and if you talk to her, she can show it to you.
Fantastic, thanks.
So is there any other, Anne?
So it's a question for either Tim or Paul. In a lot of these policies, the final point is under exceptions. When there's a deviation, Mackenzie District Council as General Manager of Corporate Services will need to authorise any deviations from the policy. So does that then come back to council, or does it just sit with the General Manager approving or authorising that deviation?
Paul?
My view would be it'd be tied back to the delegations policy. If it's within my delegation, then yes. But out of courtesy, of course, we would provide an update to council. But if it's outside my delegation, obviously we'd bring it back to either the chief executive or then up to the council for approval.
And Suzette, did you want to make a comment on this, please?
Through the chair, yes, I agree with Paul. It's not a blanket sort of approach, giving him the authority to change the policy at will. He still acts within delegation, and depends on I suppose, horses for courses. If it's a small deviation, it's insignificant, then it doesn't really matter. But if it changes the policy direction, then it should come back to council, because it's council's policy.
Thank you, Suzette, and that's the way I read it too, because basically it will be updated policies to be adopted by council. Is that correct? Yeah, okay, thank
you, Graham. That's something that cannot be delegated in accordance to the Act. It's something that will sit forever with council until they change the Act. So it's something that sits with council.
Yes, And that's the way I read it. Thank you. So any other comments? No. So the staff recommendation is that the following new and updated policies be adopted by council. And the words are adopted by council. Procurement policy, sensitive expenditure policy, cash handling policy, asset management policy, asset disposal policy, fixed asset accounting policy, community grants policy, privacy policy, property sales and acquisition policy, investment policy, liability management policy, and a risk appetite statement. So would someone like to move that we go ahead with the updating of these policies?
I'll move, Mayor Graham.
Thank you. A seconder? Thank you, Matt. All in favour, raise your hand. It's an aye. It's carried. So thank you very much. Okay, thank you for that and a good discussion. So that basically what happens now is we're going to adjourn our meeting just in time for, because we're going into public excluded. So can I have a mover to go into public excluded? Thank you, Murray. Seconder, James, thank you. So while we go into public excluded now, we'll adjourn for 10 minutes. Okay, thank you.